Have you ever wondered about the locations you've come to pass? The origin, the history, the stories that remain untold. This is what we search for. Through experiences we can share in this journey. We look into historical sites, folklore, local myths, and the paranormal. With this, we will film many documentaries. This is Project Origin.
I just really like this cute little town.
There we go.
So this is Project Origin. We're at the Malvern Manor. We actually have the owner of the place here, Josh. We would actually like to ask you a couple questions. Thank you so much for interviewing with us.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just do like a small introduction and tell us about how you came about the place and, you know, what is Malvern Manor to you?
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Josh Hurd. I am author and lecturer, documentary filmmaker, and I guess, yeah, now co-owner of this monstrosity of a building. But how I came across this place is pretty interesting. We were actually filming my first documentary film, and we're actually across the street at what's called the Classic Cafe, and I didn't realize that there's a bar attached to the Classic Cafe, and so with noise contamination and all that, we just couldn't investigate at all. But I went outside, and because I was kind of angry and, you know, kicking rocks and all that fun stuff, but I met a gentleman who said he owned this haunted place, or the way he described it was a weird building and some unexplainable things were going on. And then he told me the history of the place, and he's like, you know, it used to be a hotel, and then it switched and became like a nursing home, and then became more of a group home for mentally handicapped people. And he's like, yeah, the place is like 10,000 square feet, you know, and it's like, all of this is sounding too good to be true. And so I was like, where is this place? He's like, oh, dude, it's just right across the street. And, you know, from that point on, I was like, my gosh, like, he was nice enough to let us in that night. And we had experienced more in the first 2 hours of being here than we had in the last 2 years of doing this. And so it was pretty significant to come across something like that. And so, I mean, I was hooked from that point on. You know, as fate would have it or whatever, he got a job offer that was out of town, and he had to move, and he was selling his house, he was selling this place, and I was lucky enough to then, you know, get together with some like-minded individuals and keep it open, you know, to the public. So, but yeah, I mean, this has become kind of, I guess, my full-time job, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. I don't really necessarily consider this work. You know, I enjoy coming here and talking about the different happenings and talking with different groups that may or may not have experienced something, you know, and comparing notes and things like that. I really want to see if we can, you know, correlate evidence and activity and all of this stuff, and really do our best to kind of put this crossword puzzle together. So, but that's kind of what this place is to me, you know, now anyway.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I know that you know, we're really excited to be here tonight and do our own investigation here and get the experience. Would you mind sharing, you know, what your most outworldly experience that you had here?
So one of the most interesting things was, you know, like the documentary that I was putting together that night, it was a 3-week long shoot, and this was night 1, you know, so I really wanted to start conditioning my guys without them even knowing what was about to happen 3 weeks down the road. But I wanted to start separating them and isolating them specifically. So I put my brother in the basement of this place for an hour by himself. him sitting in a chair, camera rolling, that was it, nothing else. And we were getting coughs, like very odd like coughs, and it was definitely female, and it was doing it on command, which was something fairly interesting, right? That was one of the more significant things that happened. Now, one of the biggest things that's ever happened to me personally then is like one day this place was open for business at that time, and I was walking down to the nursing home wing where everybody experiences this shadow man, right? So I'm walking down there, and I have a vacuum cleaner in hand. I was minding my own dang business and doing nothing. But I turned the corner to go down towards that room 1 and 2 down there, and as soon as I had turned, I had seen this thing coming directly at me. And I mean, I dropped that vacuum cleaner and I ran out that door faster than anybody's ever going to see me run, probably. Like, it was very significant, you know? Now, it's since happened to me a few more times, like, since then. The last time it happened to me, you know, I'm interested especially in, like, the idea of a residual haunt. So I want to see what happens when we stand our ground, we don't flinch, or we don't run, or we don't whatever, and don't react in any way. So I stood back there for 3 solid hours, practically begging for this to happen, and it finally did. And I didn't run this time, but I definitely still flinched. So now I'm kicking myself in the butt because I know I have to go back there and do it again whenever I get the guts enough to do it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, definitely with that guy, that's one of the more significant things. Like, there's a few times I always walk in and I come in through the back door, and I no more than get to the threshold of this room, and I've heard things upstairs. I've heard my name being called. You know, I've heard what sounds like a person jumping up and down, like very blatant, throwing their legs into the ground with force. And in tandem with the jumps, you're hearing like, no, 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 no. Like, very odd. So, I mean, it almost makes you think there's somebody physically here, which is equally as alarming, you know? So, but it's things like that that go on throughout the day and night.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing those experiences. I know, maybe, who knows, maybe we'll experience something similar tonight.
I hope so. I absolutely hope so.
We'll see if I flinch or run the opposite way. We'll have to
Heck yeah, man.
out the hard way, probably. Yeah, and the other part I just wanted to say, we also pay our respects to, everyone who gets an older building and keeps it going, and, it's remarkable for us to always partake in that. Because we like to go to different locations that are more historic. It's been built some time ago, and just see that it's still there and still standing. So.
It's definitely a labor of love, I will say that. You know what I mean? But it takes a lot to keep a building like this up and going, and we're always trying to make little improvements here or there without actually messing with the integrity of the place. Like, I want to keep the guts, how they are and how we found them. That's important to me. But we want people to be comfortable too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Especially on a cold night like it is this evening. So.
Okay. Well, yeah. Once again, I want to thank you, and if anyone is in the area, anyone has ever heard of Malvern Manor, you should really check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reach out, talk
Absolutely.
to Josh, check out this area. It's just we got to tour earlier. It was really interesting. It's fascinating. A lot of different stories.
Yeah.
And not to mention, you have brought. You brought a lot of people in who used to work here. You brought in a lot of different resources where you could actually draw from actual events.
And that was super important to me too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that stuff. I'm a history freak anyway, but then when you can walk and talk with the people that were actually here when everything was up and running, like that's something else. It's pretty significant. So
brings you back in time temporarily.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's good.
So just thank you once again. I appreciate you doing the interview with us today, and hopefully we can gather some of our own evidence and show it to you, show it to everyone else, and
yeah. Not anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We have finally arrived at Malvern Manor. Malvern Manor is located in the small town of Malvern, Iowa. The town has a unique charm that is literally out in the middle of nowhere. You can see some of the history that still stands within this town. Back when Malvern Manor operated as a hotel in the 1800s, many would stay there who were working and riding through the town on a railroad. Through time, Malvern Manor also operated as a nursing home, and it eventually turned into a group home that housed the mentally handicapped. Malvern Manor eventually shut down due to neglect and abuse on the residents. There have been reports of past deaths on the property. Project Origin is here tonight to do an investigation to see what claims people have had with experiences here. So please stay tuned.